Hello there my RPG lovers and welcome to another video. Immortals Fenyx Rising is a new open world action adventure game developed by the same Ubisoft team that was behind Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You won't need to spend a lot of time with this game to start noticing all the similarities with Odyssey, but just saying that wouldn't do the game justice. Fenyx Rising is also heavily influenced by Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's not trying to hide that. The open world design and some elements of the gameplay will be instantly familiar to you if you play the famous Nintendo action adventure from 2017. But fortunately, Fenyx Rising is not suffering from identity crisis. Putting aside the huge influence of other games, it still has its own thing going on. I'm also working on the review for this game, but in the meantime, let's talk about my first impressions.
My tale begins at sea, a ship of soldiers returning from a faraway battle, their victory ambushed by an unexpected storm.
The idea of creating the narrative around the Greek mythology in a game is far from unique, but doing this in a comedic way and doing it properly was probably not easy at all. Fenyx Rising is telling a story about a simple mortal who basically became a puppet of the gods. I honestly didn't expect much from the story in this game, but it turns out to be really interesting. Mostly because it's silly, and the way it's presented through the narration is really good.
Phoenix! Sounds like the sound a dumb bird makes when it lights itself on fire, which would be ridiculous. Although, I should write that down.
It's interesting to see Greek gods in a comedic manner like this. I just hope the jokes don't get old after some time, but judging by all that I could see so far, that shouldn't happen. Either way, you won't have a lot of time to think about this because you'll be busy with all the things that you can do in the game. After a lengthy intro, the game opens up and you're free to explore the world. If it's not obvious already, the world looks absolutely amazing. The color palette is really vibrant, which is a great fit in a game with cartoony art style. All of that mixed with the great lighting and crazy amount of particles on the screen makes you want to stop and take pictures all the time. It's a really beautiful game, no doubt. But how does it play, how it controls, and what the gameplay loop is all about? Well, I'm glad you asked, because there is a lot to talk about. To put it simply, the gameplay in Fenyx Rising revolves around exploring, fighting, and solving puzzles. When it comes to exploration, the world is designed around your abilities to climb and glide. The dense vertical design is without a doubt one of the best ways to create a world that's interesting to explore, if done properly of course. Fenyx is capable of climbing almost everything in the game, but he needs stamina, and the same goes for gliding. I had some issues with the controls in the beginning. A lot of actions are identical to the control scheme from Odyssey, and I really didn't have a problem with that. But controlling your character can feel a bit stiff in some situations. I can't put my finger on the exact problem, and it's not a huge issue, but you might need some time to get used to it. The actual exploration is great, you have more than a couple of ways to get where you want to go, and you're free to choose your own paths. I mean, it's an open world game, that's what you would expect. Besides climbing and gliding, you can tame and ride mounts. You can perform some really interesting traveling tricks by combining all of your exploring abilities, and sometimes you'll absolutely need to do that. It's easy to get distracted by side activities like a chest that's guarded by enemies or a puzzle that's just waiting to be solved. If by some chance you hate puzzles, you probably won't like this game because it has a ton of them. Some are optional, but the puzzles and platforming that you have to do in vaults throughout the world are essential for progressing your character. From what I experienced so far, I think they are done pretty good with a decent amount of challenge. But I only did like 7 or 8 so far, I'll have to do a lot more in order to have a strong opinion about this. It will be important because you're going to spend a lot of time solving puzzles in vaults. But so far so good. There is no leveling in Fenyx Rising, you progress your character by acquiring a specific currency that can be found in vaults. There are a couple of different currencies for learning new abilities, improving your gear, as well as your core stats like stamina and health. Actually, there are more than a couple of different currencies in the game, which can be a bit confusing in the beginning. And speaking about abilities, it seems like we have a decent amount to choose from. Not a huge amount, but very decent for an action-adventure game. And that brings us to the combat system. Besides exploration and puzzle solving, you're going to pick a fight with a lot of enemies in this game. The combat in Fenyx feels like a simplified version of combat in Odyssey, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all. The premise of this combat system is pretty simple, but it has an interesting twist. Your light and heavy attacks are using two different weapons. The light attack is for the sword, and the heavy attack is for the axe. You can combine these two hits in a combo and use them in the air as well. If you're wondering about the stamina system and is the combat based around it, well, it is and it's not. Your regular attacks don't require any stamina, but your abilities do, as well as your dodge. It doesn't require an extremely precise positioning and careful management of your stamina in combat, like most of the games that use stamina as a main combat resource these days. But this doesn't mean that you can be reckless in fights. Enemies have telegraphed attacks that you have to avoid or parry if possible. The combat can feel a bit spammy sometimes, but it will depend on your difficulty choice. I'm playing on the hard difficulty from the beginning and it's a decent amount of challenge. The hardest difficulty is actually locked. You have to complete the game at least once to unlock it, which is interesting. One of the key factors in combat is the defense meter on enemies, and when you manage to break it, the enemy will be stunned. It's basically the same mechanic that Assassin's Creed Valhalla has, and it works okay. And also heavy attacks will apply defense damage, which is another identical mechanic from Valhalla. The thing that keeps the combat in action-adventures game fresh are different enemy types. I think this will be a really important factor for keeping the combat experience fresh throughout the game. These types of games can't rely on varied character builds, so having a lot of enemy types can keep the combat fresh, I guess. But I think there is no reason to worry about this, because Fenyx has enough important activities outside the combat, like platforming and puzzles. The game actually has some slight RPG elements as well. You can customize your character in the beginning, and you can find and upgrade your armors and weapons. You will need a specific currency for upgrading your gear. They brought the same appearances system from Odyssey, which means when you loot something for the first time, you can apply the same appearance to your other item of the same type. So that's definitely a plus for the character customization. The last thing related to combat that I have to mention is the ranged gameplay with the bow. It kinda feels a bit underwhelming, maybe because I still don't have a good bow with a decent damage or something, I don't know. I usually like to use the bow in these types of games, but I'm not really feeling it in Fenyx. But I might change my opinion when I get to upgrade the bow and get some more abilities. I'm still early in the game. It seems like there are a lot of different bows with unique effects. I found one that can stun weaker enemies a lot easier, so I might change my opinion about the bow when I get to play more. Overall, my first impressions are really positive. The game is really addictive and I can't wait to play more. It's not exactly my type of game, but I don't regret trying it out because it seems to have a lot to offer. My opinion might change for better or for worse in the review, we'll see. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, pressing the thumbs up button would mean a lot. Don't forget to subscribe for more content and click on the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. Special thanks to my Patreons, and if you as well want to become one of them, all the links are in the description. Patreon is definitely the best place to directly support my work, and every contribution is highly appreciated. That will be all, and I'll see you in the next one.